President Donald Trump recently announced a one-month delay on the 25% tariffs that were supposed to hit many Canadian imports on April 2nd. This decision came after serious talks with Canadian officials and growing fears from businesses about the economic damage these tariffs could cause. In response, Canada's Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc said Canada would hold off on its own second round of tariffs, worth $12.25 billion, until April 7th. However, Canada's first wave of tariffs, which hit $30 billion worth of U.S. goods, is still in place. One of the biggest reactions is coming from British Columbia. Since British Columbia is an important travel route between the U.S. mainland and Alaska, the province is considering charging tolls on commercial trucks heading to Alaska. British Columbia Premier David Eby said this move is a direct response to Trump's tariffs, sending a strong message to U.S. leaders. The province also plans to require that low-carbon fuel additives be made in Canada instead of relying on foreign imports. British Columbia is taking bold action as Canada pushes back against U.S. trade policies. Even though U.S. President Donald Trump eased some tariffs on North American trade partners, British Columbia Premier David Eby insists Canada must stand strong and keep its countermeasures in place. "We will not accept these threats and uncertainty. This is not how allies should behave," Eby said, making it clear that Canada won't back down until Trump fully removes the tariff threats. Although the province won't immediately impose tolls on U.S. commercial trucks traveling to Alaska, Eby believes this move sends a strong message. The White House started a trade war, and Canada is now forced to respond. British Columbia is preparing even more measures to protect its economy, including removing internal trade barriers and requiring low-carbon fuel additives for gasoline and diesel to be produced within Canada. In the coming days, British Columbia will introduce new laws to shield businesses and jobs from economic damage. Proposed actions include tolling U.S. trucks using British Columbia roads, boosting Canada's internal economy, and ensuring British Columbia businesses rely less on the U.S. With tensions rising, Canada is making it clear it won't be bullied into unfair trade deals. The U.S. tariffs are causing major problems for both American and Canadian families and businesses, and British Columbia is not staying silent. British Columbia Premier David Eby made it clear, "We will fight for British Columbians every step of the way." The province is taking strong action, and every option is on the table to push back against these trade policies. As an immediate response, British Columbia has ordered its liquor distribution branch to stop buying American liquor from red states, meaning those brands will disappear from government liquor store shelves. Government agencies and crown corporations have also been instructed to prioritize Canadian goods and services over U.S. products. These steps are part of a bigger national strategy to reduce Canada's dependence on U.S. trade. To strengthen its economy, British Columbia is expanding into new markets and speeding up approvals for major investment projects worth $20 billion. These projects will create around 8,000 jobs, especially in rural and remote areas. To stay strong against U.S. pressure, British Columbia has formed a trade and economic security task force with business, labor, and Indigenous leaders. A separate agriculture task force will protect British Columbia food supply. And a Softwood Advisory Council is working on a plan to defend British Columbia in the ongoing lumber dispute. A new cabinet committee will oversee all these actions, making sure British Columbia economy stays strong despite the trade war. British Columbia is not backing down. The province is taking strong action to protect workers, businesses, and the economy from the harsh impact of U.S. tariffs. But wait, what role does Canada play in all of this? The answer is huge. Did you know that Alaska is not directly connected to the rest of the U.S. by land? It is a geographical exclave, meaning anyone traveling by road must pass through Canada. The Alaska Highway, also called the Alcan Highway, is the main road link between Alaska and the continental U.S. This highway, built during World War II to secure military supply routes, stretches from Dawson Creek, British Columbia, all the way to Delta Junction, Alaska. Even though the road has improved over the years, it still passes through hundreds of miles of wild, remote Canadian landscapes. But it's not just roads. Air travel also depends on Canada. Many flights between Alaska and the rest of the U.S. cross Canadian airspace, and some planes even stop in Canadian cities. Canada's air traffic control plays a major role in keeping these flights safe and running smoothly. Without Canada's highways, air routes, and infrastructure, Alaska would be isolated, making Canada's role more important than ever. Did you know that Alaska depends on Canada for trade, travel, and even energy? The cooperation between American and Canadian aviation authorities keeps air travel running smoothly, making sure flights between Alaska and the lower 48 states operate without trouble. But that's not all. Canada also plays a huge role in moving goods. Even though there is no direct railway from Alaska to the rest of the U.S., freight trains regularly pass through Canada, carrying important goods. The Port of Vancouver in British Columbia is a major hub for shipments going to and from Alaska. Essential supplies like food, fuel, and building materials first travel through Canadian ports and railways before reaching Alaska. For anyone driving between Alaska and the rest of the U.S., crossing Canada's border is a must. The U.S. and Canada maintain strong diplomatic ties, making border crossings easy for trade, travel, and tourism. However, drivers must follow Canadian customs and immigration rules to pass through without issues. And let's not forget energy. Alaska is rich in oil and natural gas, and Canada's pipelines and shipping routes help transport these resources to the U.S. and beyond. This partnership is not just about travel. It's about keeping economies strong and connected. Did you know that Alaska and Canada trade over $1 billion worth of goods every year? Alaska exports around $596 million in products to Canada, while $753 million worth of goods flow into Alaska from Canada. This trade is essential for industries like energy, seafood, and manufacturing, keeping businesses running and supplies moving. But it's not just trucks and trains carrying goods. The ocean plays a huge role too. The Inside Passage, a beautiful but critical waterway, connects southeastern Alaska with British Columbia. This route is used for shipping, tourism, and travel, ensuring goods and people can move easily. Ferries, including those operated by the Alaska Marine Highway System and British Columbia ferries, play a key role in linking remote communities where roads don't exist. Meanwhile, Trump's tariffs have sparked outrage in Canada. Nova Scotia's Premier Tim Houston called Trump's actions reckless and short-sighted. In response, Nova Scotia is fighting back. The province is banning American businesses from bidding on government contracts, reviewing agreements, doubling tolls for U.S. trucks, and even removing American liquor from stores. This economic battle is heating up, and both sides are making bold moves. The economic battle between Canada and the U.S. is getting intense. Nova Scotia isn't backing down, setting aside special funds in the 2025 to 2026 budget to fight the impact of tariffs. But Premier Tim Houston isn't stopping there. He's pushing to strengthen local trade, remove internal barriers, and open new global markets. He urged Nova Scotians to support Canadian businesses and promised to defend their interests at all costs. In Alberta, Premier Danielle Smith slammed the tariffs as a shocking economic attack, warning they would backfire, raising prices and destroying jobs. She vowed to hit back within 24 hours with Alberta's own retaliatory measures. Smith also called for national unity, urging all provinces to remove trade barriers and prioritize major projects like pipelines and LNG facilities to boost Canada's economy. Meanwhile, Manitoba's Premier Wab Kinew wasted no time. He ordered an immediate ban on American alcohol from Manitoba liquor marts. Over in Newfoundland and Labrador, Premier Andrew Furey called the tariffs illegal and unfair, pulling U.S. products from store shelves and halting purchases of American goods. He also launched a Canada-U.S. trade roundtable, calling on Canadians to stand strong, defend their economy, and protect their values in this growing trade war. Canada is moving fast to reduce its reliance on the U.S. market and find new trading partners. With tariffs causing chaos, the government is urging businesses to shift exports to Europe, Asia, and Latin America instead. To help, Ottawa is offering grants and financial aid, so industries can quickly adapt. Provinces are taking action too. British Columbia is speeding up major projects and looking for international customers, while Atlantic provinces are boosting seafood exports to Europe. Even though Canada and the US have a long trade history, the constant tariff threats have pushed Canada to find safer, more reliable partners. Canada already has strong trade deals with the EU, Asia-Pacific countries, and Latin America. Now, officials are urging businesses to use these agreements to replace lost US sales. Could Japan, Europe, or India be the new key markets? Talks with Mexico and comprehensive and progressive agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership nations could also strengthen trade networks without the US. Meanwhile, Canadian manufacturers and farmers are shifting resources, finding new suppliers, and selling elsewhere. Retailers are ditching US products and choosing Canadian or global alternatives. This shift won't happen overnight, but the tariffs have forced Canada to act fast, and this time, it's serious. The battle over softwood lumber has been raging since 1982, and it's still not over. The US accuses Canada of unfair subsidies while Canada fights back, denying the claims. This lumber war has seen tariffs, lawsuits, and short-lived deals, making it one of the longest and most heated trade disputes in history. But that's not the only trade fight. The US has demanded more access to Canada's dairy market, while Canada has strict quotas to protect its farmers. There was also the country of origin labeling war, where the US tried to force Canadian meat producers to label products differently until Canada fought back at the World Trade Organization and won. History proves US tariffs often backfire. In 1930, the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act raised US taxes on imports, and Canada hit back hard, raising tariffs on 16 types of American goods, leading to an economic disaster for both countries. In 1971, President Nixon slapped a 10% tax on imports, including Canadian goods, but a deal was struck within months to remove it. More recently, President Trump imposed huge tariffs on steel and aluminum, claiming national security reasons. Canada didn't back down, hitting the US with its own retaliatory tariffs. The US finally dropped its metal tariffs in exchange for trade concessions under United States-Mexico-Canada agreement. This battle proved that when Canada stands united federal, provincial, and industry leaders together, it can push back and win. Canada refuses to be bullied, and history proves it. During the 2018 to 2020 United States-Mexico-Canada agreement trade deal negotiations, Canadian leaders stood firm against Trump's aggressive tactics. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's bold words in 2018 Canada will not be pushed around set the stage for how Canada handles trade disputes today. Now, with new US tariffs in place, Canada and its provinces are fighting back together. These sweeping 25% tariffs on Canadian goods violate the United States-Mexico-Canada trade agreement, which was supposed to remove most tariffs between North American countries. Canada argues that these new tariffs break global trade rules and go against World Trade Organization agreements, which require fair treatment of all trading partners. But Trump is justifying the tariffs in a shocking way by declaring a national emergency over fentanyl trafficking and blaming Canada. He claims these tariffs are needed to pressure Canada into stopping illegal cross-border smuggling. However, Canada calls this a ridiculous excuse, pointing out that past World Trade Organization rulings have rejected similar national security claims. So, what happens next? Canada won't stay silent. It can challenge the tariffs through the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement dispute system, which could lead to official rulings and even retaliation. The battle isn't over. Canada is ready to fight back. If the US refuses to back down even after a ruling against the tariffs, Canada won't stay quiet. It has the power to hit back with its own counter tariffs on American goods. While legal battles can take over a year, Canada is already taking action to protect its economy. Besides fighting at the World Trade Organization, Canada is looking at other legal moves, using United States-Mexico-Canada agreement special clauses, halting trade concessions, and even taking the US to court. But here's the catch. US presidents have wide powers over trade during emergencies, making legal wins harder. Real change will likely come through tough negotiations and political pressure. This trade war is shaking North America. But can Canada's bold response force the US to back down? Let us know what you think in the comments. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more updates.